I'm Emily. Welcome to Scars and Stories. If you like storytime vibes, hit subscribe and let's dive in together.
I'll say yes, but only until someone better comes along. That's what she smirked when Mark got down on one knee. But instead of slipping the ring onto her finger, he snapped the box shut, took the ring back, and walked away. Now she's alone, while he's engaged to someone real. How did everything turn so quickly? And what happens when silence becomes the sweetest revenge? Tonight's story is about Mark, a man who gave years of love only to be laughed at and dismissed as nothing more than a placeholder. Trust me, this is a story that will shock you, Mark. 28, steady, dependable, and deeply in love, only to be laughed at and labeled as a placeholder. For 4 years he had been with Lena, a woman who could light up a room without even trying. To their friends, they looked picture perfect. They split rent in a small but cozy apartment, shared inside jokes with their circle, and hinted at marriage in conversations. Well, Mark did. Lena always brushed it off with a vague, "Yeah, someday," the kind of reply that sounded playful on the surface, but carried a weight he ignored. Mark wasn't flashy. He worked a stable IT job that paid the bills and allowed for comfort. But behind that stability was sacrifice. No expensive car, no extravagant hobbies, no reckless splurges. Every spare dollar went into a separate savings account, a future he was quietly building for Lena. He remembered her once saying she wanted a big wedding and a honeymoon worth talking about. Mark wanted to give her that, even if it meant pushing aside things he wanted for himself. 8 months of disciplined saving finally brought him to a jeweler's parking lot, holding a small velvet box in his palm. Inside was an elegant ring, not the kind splashed across social media, but timeless, simple, and bought with every ounce of love and effort he could give. Sitting in his car, he thought, "This is it. This is the beginning of forever." The plan was meaningful, not extravagant. Dinner at Lena's favorite restaurant, the one reserved for special occasions. Then a quiet walk in the park near their home. A footbridge draped with string lights, the same place they had taken photos early in their relationship. That was where he'd kneel. Nothing dramatic, just a memory stitched with meaning. He told only one person, his best friend Eric. Eric had clapped him on the shoulder, grinning. "She's going to love it, man." "You two are solid," Mark believed it. He wanted to believe it. But looking back, there were signs. Sharp little jokes Lena made at his expense, the way she compared him, subtly but enough to sting, to other men who had more prestigious jobs or flashier cars. He ignored them, telling himself love wasn't about perfection. She was beautiful, magnetic, the kind of woman who could hold a room without trying. Mark always felt lucky to be the man beside her. That night, nerves buzzed beneath his skin as he straightened his tie. Lena appeared in the doorway, wearing a black dress that clung in all the right ways, her hair falling in effortless curls. At dinner, he barely tasted his food. His hand brushed the small box in his jacket pocket every few minutes, his heartbeat climbing with each glass of wine she sipped. After the plates were cleared, he asked her for a walk. She hesitated, said she was tired, but eventually agreed. They strolled through the crisp night air, the park quiet except for the occasional couple passing by. As they reached the bridge, the lights above shimmered softly against the water. Mark stopped, turning toward her. "Lena," he began, voice steady despite his racing pulse. "The past 4 years with you have been the best of my life. I've tried to be the man who supports you, who loves you the way you deserve. And I want to keep doing that for the rest of my life." He dropped to one knee and opened the box. Her eyes widened, but not with joy, not with tears of happiness. Instead, there was a flicker of amusement, almost disbelief. "Will you marry me?" he asked. For a beat, silence hung in the air. Then Lena let out a laugh, a light, scoffing laugh that carved into him like a blade. "I mean, sure," she said, dragging the word. "I'll say yes." Relief rushed through Mark for half a second, until she kept talking. "But let's be real. It's only until someone better comes along." The air was sucked from his chest. He froze, still holding the box open. "What?" Lena folded her arms, tilting her head like she was stating an obvious fact. "Come on, don't look at me like that. You're not exactly my dream guy. You're stable, safe, fine. But if someone came along who was taller, richer, more ambitious, am I really supposed to turn that down? Don't be naive." Mark's hands stopped shaking. He stood, snapping the box closed. His voice was steady, almost too calm. "Then there's no point." Her smile faltered. "Wait, what?" "I didn't spend months saving, planning, and pouring my heart into this just to be your placeholder. Good luck finding your better Mark. Don't be dramatic." "You didn't say yes," he replied firmly. "You made it clear I'll never be enough for you." And with that, he turned and walked off the bridge, leaving her stunned beneath the glowing lights. The rest of the night blurred. He remembered Lena trying to act like nothing had happened, collapsing onto the couch with Netflix, as if she hadn't just shattered the foundation of their relationship. When he didn't join her, she frowned. "You're seriously sulking?" he simply said. "I'm going to bed." That night, lying next to her felt lonelier than being completely alone. The next morning brought no apology, only irritation. "You're overreacting." I said yes, didn't I? Most guys would kill for that. Most guys wouldn't want to be a backup plan, he told her, looking straight into her eyes. She scoffed, muttering, "You're too sensitive." From that moment, something in Mark broke. He moved through the days like a ghost, going to work, coming home, eating in silence. He no longer shared his thoughts or plans with her. In his heart, he was already gone. When he finally confided in Eric, his friend's jaw nearly dropped. "She really said that? During your proposal?" "Word for word," Mark confirmed. "That's not rejection," Eric muttered. "That's cruelty." Meanwhile, Lena carried on as though nothing had changed. She even bragged to friends that she was engaged, despite never having the ring. She told people Mark was just sulking and would come around eventually. That was when Mark realized something important. She never saw him as a partner with feelings. To Lena, he was simply a role, a provider, a companion, something disposable, to be replaced when something shinier came along. So he made his move, not with shouting or drama, but with silence. He packed a bag, took the essentials, and left. Moved in with Eric. No goodbye, no fight, just gone. Within weeks, Lena was plastering her social media with photos of a new man. A tall, flashy type with an expensive watch and a shiny car. Captions like, "Finally found someone on my level," filled her feed. Friends sent Mark screenshots. He didn't ask for them, but they came anyway. And you know what? He didn't even feel jealous. If anything, it confirmed what she had said that night. He was nothing more than a placeholder in her eyes. But Lena's picture-perfect upgrade wasn't as it seemed. And that, dear listeners, is where things begin to shift. The shine didn't last long. At first, Lena's posts made her look untouchable. Photos with Mr. Flashy at rooftop bars, selfies in expensive restaurants, captions dripping with confidence. This is what passion looks like. Finally, real love. To the outside world, she wanted it to seem like she had upgraded. But whispers started trickling in through mutual friends. The luxury car, leased, and he was already behind on payments. The shiny watch, a knockoff. The impressive apartment Lena boasted about. Not his. He was crashing with a friend after losing his job. And who was footing the bills for their fancy nights out? Lena. It was almost poetic. The very things she mocked Mark for not having, the flash, the money, the ambition, turned out to be nothing but smoke and mirrors. Mark didn't gloat. He didn't even talk about it. Friends kept updating him, though, like spectators at a slow-motion train wreck. And the irony wasn't lost on anyone. The woman who had dismissed stability for sparkle was now burning her savings to keep the sparkle alive. Then came the late-night text. At first, it was casual. "Hey, how are you doing?" Mark stared at the message on his screen, then slid the phone face down. He didn't reply. A week later, another attempt. A call at 11 p.m. The screen lit up with Lena's name. He let it ring. Soon, a mutual friend pulled him aside. Lena asked if you're seriously done with her, or if you're just taking time to think. Mark laughed bitterly. "I'm not thinking about her at all." And it was true. His life was moving forward. He threw himself into work, and with the emotional weight gone, he thrived. His boss noticed. Within months, Mark was promoted. His salary bumped up enough for him to move into his own condo. For the first time in years, his space was his. No walking on eggshells, no condescending remarks, just peace. Meanwhile, Lena's Instagram image was crumbling. Mr. Flashy's debts caught up with him. The car got repossessed. The business ventures he bragged about collapsed. And when Lena couldn't keep covering dinners and rent, he disappeared. He ghosted her. The first public crack appeared on Facebook. A long, angry post from Lena, ranting about men who pretend to be successful to trap women. The comments weren't kind. "Didn't you brag about how perfect he was?" one person wrote. Another added, "Maybe stop chasing image over substance." Her friends weren't buying the act anymore. That's when the desperate texts started rolling in. "I miss how stable things were with you. We were so good together, Mark. I don't know why you're being so cold. I said stupid things that night, but you know I didn't mean it. I just wanted to sound funny. Can't we talk?" Mark never replied. What struck him most wasn't the desperation. It was the arrogance beneath it. Even after humiliating him, Lena still believed he'd be waiting in the wings, ready to take her back. She hadn't lost him because of Mr. Flashy. She lost him the second she laughed at his proposal. Everything since then was just proof that she meant it. By the time Lena's world was collapsing, Mark's was expanding. He started meeting new people through work, through friends. At a small gathering, he was introduced to Sarah, a woman who couldn't have been more different from Lena. Sarah was grounded, witty, and genuinely curious about others. When Mark talked about his goals, she listened. When he mentioned his work, she encouraged him. It wasn't about rushing into something new. It was about realizing the difference between being mocked and being valued. Still, Lena wasn't done. At a mutual friend's housewarming, fate, or irony, placed them under the same roof again. Mark almost skipped the party, but Eric convinced him. "You'll want to see this with your own eyes," he promised. Sure enough, the moment Lena spotted him, she lit up. "Mark," she exclaimed, rushing over with a forced brightness. "Oh my God, it's been forever." "You look amazing." Mark gave her a polite nod. "Evening, Lena." She lowered her voice, eyes darting around as if rehearsing lines. "Listen, about that night. I was stupid. I was trying to be funny, and it came out wrong. I never meant to hurt you. You know I always loved you." Her eyes begged him for a rope, some lifeline to pull her back into his world. Mark just looked at her, saying nothing. She tried again, her voice more desperate. "That guy, he meant nothing, just a phase, a mistake. We had years together. Doesn't that matter more than one dumb comment?" It was surreal, watching her twist the story, as if he had overreacted, as if she hadn't scoffed at the idea of marrying him and called him a placeholder. Mark didn't argue, he didn't raise his voice, he simply said, "Excuse me," and walked away. But Lena wasn't done chasing. Twice more that night she cornered him, once with flirtation, once with guilt, even once with anger. At one point she hissed, "You're really going to throw us away over one mistake?" Mark just stared at her, then turned his back. By the end of the night, Lena looked like a balloon losing air, shrinking, deflated, while Mark sat laughing with real friends. A week later, she sent one final message. Paragraphs upon paragraphs about how she had grown, how she wanted another chance, how she was willing to prove herself. "For the first time since that night on the bridge," Mark replied. It was short, simple, final. "Lena, you were clear about how you saw me when you said I was just a backup. That moment ended everything for me. I didn't throw us away. You did. I've moved on, and I don't look back. I wish you the same clarity one day." She fired back almost instantly. "Wow, so you think you're too good for me now?" He didn't even open the rest, blocked, and that was it. The woman who once laughed at his love, who thought she'd always have him as a safety net, was gone from his life for good. But here's the twist. The very words she used to degrade him, just a backup, had become her fate. She wasn't his love, his partner, or even his mistake anymore. She was just background noise, muted permanently. And Mark? He had found freedom. Silence had been his revenge. But the story doesn't end there, because when life gave Mark peace, it also gave him a chance to rebuild, not just his career, but his heart. And that's where the final chapter begins. Mark's life after Lena was quieter, steadier, but in that quiet, something powerful grew. With no one draining his energy, he discovered how much he could achieve when his heart wasn't weighed down by doubt. His promotion opened doors, and with it came new projects, new colleagues, and a confidence he hadn't realized he'd lost during those years with Lena. He decorated his condo exactly the way he wanted. No compromise, no criticism. The walls didn't echo with sarcasm or dismissive laughter. Instead, they held peace, music, and the sound of his own laughter when friends came over. And then there was Sarah. Their friendship blossomed naturally, built not on grand gestures, but on genuine care. She had this way of listening, really listening, without judgment. She celebrated his wins and encouraged his ambitions, never once making him feel small. For the first time, Mark realized that love wasn't supposed to be a battlefield where one person constantly proved their worth. It was supposed to be a partnership where both people lifted each other higher. He didn't rush into labeling things he didn't need to. Being around Sarah felt easy, natural, the opposite of the anxious knots he used to tie himself in with Lena. Meanwhile, Lena was still trying to salvage the wreckage of her own choices. Friends told Mark she was desperately rebranding herself online, throwing up motivational quotes and captions about self-love and growth. But the same friends who once hyped her up were now rolling their eyes. She'd bragged too loudly, mocked too openly, and when the facade collapsed, so did her credibility. The final nail came at another gathering months later. Mark wasn't even planning to go, but Eric convinced him again. "Trust me," Eric said with a grin. "This time it'll be the last chapter." Lena was there, of course. Only this time the brightness was gone. She looked tired, her once sharp confidence dulled. When she spotted Mark and Sarah together, her face stiffened. Still, she approached. "Mark," she said, forcing a smile, "can we talk?" Mark glanced at Sarah, then back at Lena. "About what?" Her voice wavered, a mix of desperation and defensiveness. "About us. About everything. I was stupid, okay? I let my pride ruin what we had. I know you've moved on, but maybe we could try again. Just start over." Sarah quietly excused herself, giving them space. But Mark didn't need long. He shook his head. "Lena, the night you laughed at me, at us, you showed me who you really were. You didn't lose me because of that guy. You lost me the second you made it clear I was never enough for you." Her eyes glistened, not with regret for him, but with frustration at herself. "So that's it? Years together and you're just done?" "I didn't throw us away," Mark replied firmly. "You did." He turned and walked back to Sarah, whose smile was calm and steady, like an anchor. And that was the moment Lena finally understood. She hadn't just lost a boyfriend, she'd lost the man who had given her loyalty, patience, and love without conditions. And in exchange, she had gambled it all for a fantasy that crumbled in her hands. From that day forward, Lena faded from Mark's story. She became nothing more than a cautionary tale, someone he once knew. But Mark's story kept going. He built a career he was proud of, a relationship grounded in respect and joy, and a life that belonged to him. And the irony? The words Lena had once used to belittle him, just a backup, became the very definition of her place in his life. A backup memory, muted, irrelevant, while he moved forward into a future she could no longer touch. Now, as I tell you this, dear listeners, I want you to sit with the emotions this story brings. The pain of betrayal, the anger of being dismissed, the satisfaction of watching justice unfold, not through revenge, but through living well. And finally, the release, the realization that sometimes the best way to win is to walk away in silence. Because here's the lesson. Love is not about settling for someone who sees you as temporary. Marriage is not about holding on to a placeholder until something shinier comes along. It's about respect. It's about seeing the person beside you as irreplaceable, not interchangeable. And if you ever find yourself being laughed at, belittled, or treated as not enough, remember Mark's story. Remember that your silence, your growth, and your refusal to be anyone's backup is the loudest revenge of all. Thank you for listening to this story on Scars and Stories. If you found yourself moved, if you felt the sting of Lena's cruelty and the triumph of Mark's freedom, make sure to subscribe to the channel, hit that like button, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Because sometimes the scars left behind are not just reminders of pain, they're proof of survival. And every story, even the ones that hurt, carries a lesson worth telling.